The Chan Clan Chronicles Chapter 9. The Chinese Exclusion Acts, and Anti-Chinese Discrimination.
This is the story of the Chinese Exclusion Acts, and the discrimination endured by the Chinese immigrants in America. This is a cartoon of Uncle Sam, kicking a poor Chinese immigrant, back to the shore where he landed. The cartoon on the left shows a huge Chinese wall around the United States, to keep out the Chinese. The ladder to scale the wall is also being knocked down. The cartoon on the right shows the gates of liberty closed to the Chinese. The notice reads, Communists, Nihilists, Socialists, Fenians, who were a band of Irish nationalists, and hoodlums welcome. But no admittance to Chinamen. The only one barred out.
This is a timeline of Chinese American history, created by the Chinese Historical Society of America. The timeline highlights key dates and periods which affected the lives of all Chinese Americans. 1850. The California Gold Rush. 1868. Emigration limits from China to U.S. lifted. Construction started on the Transcontinental Railroad. 1875. Recruitment of unfree Chinese laborers to U.S. for immoral purposes prohibited. 1882. Chinese Exclusion Act. Chinese laborers barred from entering U.S., and all Chinese barred from becoming U.S. citizens. 1898. Birthright citizenship to all granted, including the Chinese. 1943. Exclusion Act repealed, but Chinese immigration quota limited to 105 total. 1950. Korean War and McCarthyism threatens the Chinese. 1965. Immigration Reform Act and Amnesty Program eliminates quotas and the use of paper sons and daughters. 1971. Ping-pong diplomacy improves U.S. and China relations. 1979. Full diplomatic relations between U.S. and People's Republic of China. 2018. Trade wars and COVID-19 spark waves of anti-Asian hate crimes. This is a summary of factors leading to the emigration of the Chinese to America, and the factors causing the racial discrimination aimed towards the Chinese. The Opium Wars, 1839-42, and 1856-60, between China and Great Britain, left China in great debt. The Chinese government was severely weakened and unstable due to foreign demands and interference, resulting in unrest and rebellion among the population. Floods and drought caused a mass exodus of peasants from their farms, and many left their China homeland to find work. Discovery of gold in California in 1848 resulted in a large increase of Chinese immigrants coming to California to join the gold rush. The massive crop failure of 1852 in China resulted in over 20,000 immigrants coming to San Francisco looking for work, compared to 2,700 the previous year. Construction of the Transcontinental Railroad from 1863 to 1869 led to another massive wave of Chinese immigration. The end of the gold rush, and the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, left thousands of Chinese gold miners and railroad workers looking for work, in order to repay large debts from passage to America, to send money home to families in China, and to have enough left for food, clothing, and shelter. Chinese immigrants were desperate, and willing to work at any job, at below market wages, which caused extreme resentment against the Chinese from Caucasian workers. All of these factors resulted in the passage of the Chinese Exclusion Acts, to placate workers, and assuage concerns about maintaining white racial purity. This is a summary of the various Chinese Exclusion Acts, and other acts of discrimination directed against the Chinese in America. The Chinese Exclusion Acts. In May 1852, California imposed a foreign miners' tax of $3 per month. This was meant specifically to target Chinese miners. An 1854 Supreme Court case, People v. Hall, ruled that the Chinese were not allowed to testify in court, making it effectively impossible for Chinese immigrants to seek justice. The Page Act of 1875 was the first restrictive immigration law, and barred recruitment of East Asians as forced laborers, and women for immoral purposes. This act mainly targeted Chinese women. The infamous Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, suspended immigration for Chinese laborers, skilled and unskilled, for 10 years, and declared Chinese immigrants ineligible for naturalization. Successful application as a non-laborer was almost impossible. Later amendments prevented laborers who left the U.S. from returning. Owners of certain businesses were able to obtain special merchant status, and be exempt from the Exclusion Act. The Geary Act went into effect on May 5, 1892. It reinforced and extended the Chinese Exclusion Act's ban on Chinese immigration for an additional 10 years. It also required all Chinese residents in the U.S. to carry special documentation, certificates of residence, from the Internal Revenue Service. Any Chinese who were caught not carrying the certificates were sentenced to hard labor and deportation. Chinese Americans were finally allowed to testify in court, after the 1882 trial of laborer Yi Shun. The Supreme Court upheld the Geary Act in Fong Yue Ting versus the United States in 1893, and in 1902, Chinese immigration was made permanently illegal. Because the US and China became allies during World War II, the Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed in 1943 with the passage of the Magnuson Act. However, the Magnuson Act only permitted a tiny quota of 105 Chinese immigrants annually in total, based on ethnicity, not nationality. The Magnuson Act was repealed by the Immigration Act and Amnesty Program of 1965, which eliminated the national origins quota system, and allowed Chinese residents to apply for permanent residency and U.S. citizenship under their real name and identity, after renouncing their false identity.
These signs read, "No dogs and Chinese allowed." And dogs and Chinese no admittance. Notice that the dogs get top billing over the Chinese.
Under the sky, under the heavens, there is but one family.
The Angel Island Immigration and Detention Center.
Angel Island. Angel Island served as the immigration, detention, and isolation center for countless Chinese immigrants arriving in Northern California from 1910 to 1940. There are untold numbers of tragic stories of Chinese immigrants detained there for extended periods. As such, Angel Island played an extremely important role in the story of Chinese immigration in America. Angel Island and the immigration station are now part of the California State Park system. This is Angel Island, in the middle of San Francisco Bay. Approaching Angel Island by ferry boat. This is the old administration building. These are Chinese immigrants disembarking from the ferry to Angel Island. This is the old registration lobby. Immigrants undergoing interrogation, general health examination, and evaluation for communicable diseases. Dining room and triple bunk bed sleeping quarters. Outdoor recreation. Angel Island detainees. Old administration building, engulfed in flames. This is the current Angel Island State Park. The Angel Island Bell, historic landmark marker, and heritage wall. Immigration station model, and informational plaques. Immigration station. Visitor center, and detention barracks. Everyday life in the detention barracks. Chinese poetry carved into the barrack walls. Angel Island Memorial Monument. Leaving behind their homes and villages, they crossed the ocean, only to endure confinement in these barracks. Conquering frontiers and barriers, they pioneered a new life by the Golden Gate. End of Chapter 9.